living la vida low-carb. This show is changing lives. We talking about your diet, trying to get you feeling right. Cut up them avocados, fry some eggs, time to explore the longest running health podcast, hosted by Jimmy Moore. Time to give up the crappy garbage, we're getting into ketosis. Every day is a new step to your goal, yeah, you're getting closer. Motivated and focused, don't stop, just go. Time to get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com.
Guys, that right there is Dr. Joy Kong, and she is Stem Cell Dr. Joy, Dr. Joy, over on Instagram. And she is obviously a wonderful expert in the world of stem cell research and therapy. I've never had anybody on my show in all the years I've interviewed. I've never talked about stem cell therapy for an entire podcast. So this will be a lot of fun. Dr. Kong is triple board certified physician. She was named the top doctor of the year in stem cell therapy a couple years ago, and then the top stem cell doctor of the decade this year. Congratulations on all those accolades, but welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Well, tell us more about yourself, how you got interested in medicine, because you are a medical doctor, as the black cat goes up to you.
I just got my hair matching my kitty. So yes, oh boy, it's been, like people talk about reinventing yourself every, 10 years or so. I realized that's what happened to me. So I grew up in Beijing, China, and I started my, academic career by studying architecture. And then, so I wrote a book about, how I actually ended up coming to the US. So I was dead set on becoming an architect because I really, really loved the kind of interdisciplinary, combination of the study. And then I realized I had to make a decision to come to the US versus not, because the political climate changed. So I came to the US, and then everything's wide open, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And eventually I realized I loved science. So I would go into medical sciences, and I was going to do neuroscience research because I love the brain. And what happened was that I really enjoy the human aspect. So I decided to go into medical school. And in medical school, again, it's wide open. You can go into any specialty. And because of my love for the brain and the human mind, I went into psychiatry. So I actually was a practicing psychiatry for 11 years. And I was always trying to integrate some kind of Eastern medicine, some kind of integrative approach, because I knew that just by diagnosing somebody, without really looking at anything else in their health and throwing drugs at them, that is not the best solution. No. So I tried to integrate, which was exhausting for me because I was working in a traditional psychiatric setting. Yes. And I was doing, 5 times more work because I was trying to incorporate everything else. Other psychiatrists weren't having so much stress because they just like, here's a drug, doesn't work. Okay, come back, here, add this one on and come back in another month. So I wasn't willing to compromise like that. And so it was really difficult. And also I found, even though I studied Chinese medicine, I learned, not that much because it takes years and years to really master something like Chinese medicine. So, but just from what I learned, it's very difficult to incorporate something like Eastern medicine with Western medicine. Yeah. The languages are like, it's like German, German and Japanese. I mean, you can't put the two together. And then when, I guess they got together in World War II. But anyhow, so when I found out about integrative medicine, which is the whole functional medicine aspect, that was like the whole world lit up because I realized, so they are actually incorporating the wisdom from the Eastern approach, which is looking at the body as a very complex whole, that each organ is affecting all the other organs. So you're not looking at linear relationships, you're actually looking at a web of relationships. So you can incorporate that, but with scientific language. So you're actually using research and using, quantifiable data, and then using the language of, whatever molecules or cells, you can actually incorporate that with Western science. So that's when I got really inspired. So I wanted to do something that's fully addressing a person as a whole. And then very quickly, because stem cell therapy is part of this integrative approach, part
Yes.
of this holistic, kind of going after the full intelligence of the body. And I just thought it was too exciting. Of course, I heard about stem cells, very briefly in medical school. Yeah. They really didn't teach you much on stem cells. I was there, I got into medical school in 1999. So that was, stem cells wasn't really part of the lexicon. And then my understanding about stem cells still was, I think stem cells are in the research stage, because you're in a bubble when you are in a particular specialty.
Right.
So everyone you talk to and all the conference you go to, they're all limited by what the pharmaceutical industry and what's published. So you're in this bubble. So in my bubble, I had no contact with stem cells. That's my bubble.
And at the time in '99, I was alive, and it was very controversial. There was a lot of the pro-life groups talking about, oh my gosh, you can't do stem cell research, that's little babies. And so you had all that kind of going on culturally as well.
Right, very true. Yeah. So, and a lot of that has carried over to this side. That's why I started putting out YouTube videos to really educating people, telling them, hey, we're not 20 years ago anymore. We have moved on. Stem cell therapy is not embryonic stem cell anymore. We're gone far from that. So basically, I still see that bubble, of doctors, probably 95% of doctors, at least. If you go ask your doctor, any traditional, medical practice, you ask them about stem cells, I'll bet you the response will be, well, there's still not enough evidence. There's not just, it's more hype than blah, 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 blah. And I tell my patients who I've spoken to their doctors, I said, can I send your doctors research articles? I would love to share. I would love them to show them what kind of evidence already has been around all over the world.
The not enough evidence is code for, I don't know. That's
right. Just because you didn't look doesn't mean the evidence is not there. Right. So it's all about them not looking because they've got their blinders on. So anyhow, I got really excited about stem cells. In theory, sounds great, but even if it sounds great, I've seen so many things that sounds great in theory, doesn't mean it works, right? So when I actually saw doctors who have treated patients with, really tough conditions, the first case this doctor told me about was an autism case. So autistic kids, I'm a psychiatrist, right? I've treated autistic kids. It was one of the most difficult and most heartbreaking conditions. That's why I didn't go into child psychiatry. I thought, this is not fulfilling. This is not satisfying because we're just trying to numb these kids. We're trying to shut them up. We're trying to make them more sedated. And that's what we're doing. We're not helping their brain function better. That's not what we're doing. So when I saw stem cell therapy actually function, fundamentally are improving the kids' communication skills, their ability to relate to other kids, and their hyperactivity and just overall functioning, right? Or even something like incontinence. So you are improving somebody's lives in a way that's completely unprecedented, that traditional medicine has not been able to provide. And that was really inspiring.
Which is why you're here today, by the way, Dr. Kong, is I feel like so much of allopathic care, the traditional model, which you've been a part of, it's only kind of this one-size-fits-all kind of model. It's very similar to what's happened nutritionally. We see the USDA dietary guidelines come out every 5 years, and it's generally the same damn diet we've always seen. And it's like nobody ever gets healthier, nobody ever gets better, even though we have more preponderance of evidence that keeps piling up. It's kept pushed to the side. Well, we can't use it because it's not for this, it's not for that. And I see the same thing with allopathic care. Well, you can look at things like stem cell therapy and other kind of therapies that are kind of outside our realm. Well, we don't have enough evidence. Well, it's just not the norm. And they stay with their blinders on right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing else can come in.
Yeah, and I tell people not only the guidelines are not, helping people healthier, they're actually making people sicker. And I follow the USDA, their guidelines. I was struggling with my weight. I was frustrated. I was going on binging and starvation. I mean, right now is like blissful. I eat whatever I want because I choose the right food, and I can keep my weight at a really great level. So, you know, and then I started telling people, I said, okay, doctors, we have become really efficient killers these days. We're really good at killing you because we are now we have risen to the third leading cause of death. We are really good. So just remember, we can be as dangerous cancer and as heart disease. If you come to see us, just remember, we can easily kill you.
And that's why they call it practicing medicine, not executing. Well, executing is a bad word for killing. Doing the thing.
I mean, I you know, I have empathy, you know, for, you know, physicians out there doing great work. I mean, they're absolutely, you know, their heart, most of them, their heart is in the right place. Yeah. But just because your heart is in the right place doesn't mean that you're doing the right things for your patients.
Look, if I break my arm, I'm going to an allopathic doctor because they know how to put that thing back together again. But if I've got a chronic illness that's an inflammatory disease, I'm not going to a traditional doctor. I'm going to go to somebody that's more functional medicine oriented, more getting to the root causes oriented, and doctors aren't made that, allopathic doctors aren't made that way.
Right. So if we can integrate it too, it would be so powerful. I mean, Chinese medicine is a very preventative medical approach, right? You're preventing people from getting sick. Look how many Chinese there are, right? Indians, Ayurveda, look how many Indians there are. So they are good at preventing, at allowing a population to flourish. But when something disastrous come up, like an infectious disease or some kind of you know, trauma to the body, you really, really want to, admire. You want to utilize the Western medicine. So when the two come together, it's really, really powerful. So I tell people, I grew up without prejudice against anybody, you know, Western or Eastern medicine. You know, in my family's medicine drawer, they're all mixed in together. It's like they're all, I can't tell. It's like, what's this? Oh, this is Chinese medicine. Oh, that's Western medicine. Yeah. So my mom would just ask me, okay, what's your problem? What are you feeling? And so, oh, my stomach is upset. And then she was like, okay, all right. She would go into the drawer and she will pull out either a Chinese medicine or a Western medicine, just depending on what my symptoms are. So that would be a really beautiful place to be.
Oh, the herbal medicine and just all kinds of things that doctors don't utilize. And it's right there. It's not like it's not readily available. It's not like they couldn't add it to the medical school curriculum, a little bit of like replacing some things with kind of more of an Eastern style medicine, a functional kind of approach. You're right. I think the future of medicine is integrating those two.
You know why it's not in the curriculum, right? So, so the pharmaceutical company, the entire industry is very much funded by the drug companies. So our entire education was based on figuring out what the diagnosis is. You know, just wait until people get sick. Just wait. Don't help them. Don't do anything. Just wait until they get sick, and then you find the diagnosis. Diagnosis will give you the exact pointer at which drug to give. Yes. That's all you need to do. You just connect the two. So we became a drug delivery, you know, we were part of the cog, you know, in the little machine, in the big machine. So that's, you know, that's the problem. And that is still the problem today. And I'm very outspoken. So I'm going to say, you know, part of this whole adversarial attitude toward stem cell therapy is because we are, you know, people who are doing stem cell therapy, we are a big threat to this existing money-making machine.
Well, look, I've been at this 17 years talking about low-carb ketogenic diets. I have felt that kind of pressure from various organizations. The food companies, they don't like what people like me do. The pharmaceutical companies, they don't like either. When you're kind of getting close to home for their profitability, and I hate to even say it that way, but that's what it is. Same with mainstream medicine. They get very profitable from all these procedures that they get to do. They don't like that. And it's so funny because you got into medicine because, I don't know, you cared about your patients. And like you said, most of your fellow colleagues in the medical world, same thing. They do mean well. They do have the best interests of their patients at heart. But then you've got entities like the pharmaceutical companies, like the food companies and other special interests. They're not interested in your health. They're interested in their wealth.
Yes, yes. So, and that also leads to, I think, to a great degree of disenchantment and burnout in physicians.
Yeah.
Because if you're just pushing drugs, I mean, like, I work at the VA system, and I remember seeing all these veterans coming in with their bags. They're going to show their primary care doctor all their medications, right? These are what I'm taking. Minimum there will be 5 or 6. More it will be 30 drugs. Everybody has a bag. So that's what that's what you're doing. We have, how about getting a patient to be healthier in the first place, because we have so many tools nowadays. Even diabetes, that we thought we have to throw drugs, is a very easily preventable and treatable condition, just with diet and lifestyle alone. And stem cell therapy, actually, there's some great research showing incredible results for both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So very exciting. And so when it comes to stem cells, there's so much research out there, and that's where I think I'm feeling a void, because so many doctors are so excited by it, and then they may start offering it, but they don't know exactly what kind of research, what kind of backing, from scientific point of view there are. So it takes somebody to kind of put everything systematically together. So that's kind of what I've been doing in the field. I want to educate other doctors.
Yes, and we need that. By the way, before we get too deep into the stem cell talk, tell us what stem cells are, because you differentiated it earlier and brilliantly, by the way. I love that you said, 20 years ago it was all about embryonic, but that's not what you're talking about now. Give us kind of the basic primer 101 layman's of what stem cell therapy is.
Okay, so first of all, to admire just the profundity and just the beauty of what stem cells are. Think of you and me and everybody that's listening to this. We came from a single stem cell, right? Sperm and egg formed the first cell, and that is the first stem cell. And from that stem cell came us, this incredibly complex organism. So what kind of intelligence is in that one cell that is able to direct this kind of symphony, this orchestration of changing and forming of tissue layers, and then they become little organs, and how they mature and how they all connect and communicate with each other? What kind of incredible intelligence? If that's not miracle, I don't know what it is. So that is the first stem cell. But there are many kinds of stem cells. When the first stem cell come along, so when they use embryonic stem cells, that's a very close stage to the very first stem cell, because the embryonic stem cells, they harvest it from the embryo at day 5 to 7 of gestation. So it's only a few days old, of little embryo. So they take one of those cells out. Those cells are incredibly powerful. So powerful that things can go wrong because they're wild with potentials. So that's where those cells can cause tumor formation, because they can just go kind of grow whatever tissue they want to grow into. But each step of the way, when they start forming tissues and they will get more and more specialized, they're still stem cells, but then they get more and more specialized, eventually down to all the way in a mature organ. There are tissue specific stem cells. So those stem cells will form just the cells of the tissue. Let's say liver, stem cells in the liver. That's what they will, they only have one potential. So you got from able to form anything to only forming one particular cell type in the tissue. All these are stem cells. So we can utilize any of these stem cells, anywhere along the way. And embryonic stem cells is the earliest, right? Day 5 to 7, very, very young, powerful stem cells. And then there are stem cells that are commonly used these days, which are actually the newcomer in the stem cell therapy, which is birth tissue. So that's day 0 old, right? Day 0, day 1 old stem cells from a fully formed human being. So when the baby's born, the birth tissue usually is tossed away, but we realize that it's full of stem cells. So there are different types of stem cells, but it's full of stem cells. And we keep growing, right? As we keep growing older, our bodies still have lots of stem cells, but the stem cell number are dwindling drastically as we age. I'll give you a number, the mesenchymal stem cell, which has been very much targeted these days because of this powerful kind of orchestrating role they have in the body. And these mesenchymal stem cells, some researchers doesn't like the word stem cell. They don't think that this is stem cells in the purest sense. They want to name it medicinal signaling cells. So these are cells that actually send almost like medicinal signals. They actually tell your body what to do in order to repair and regenerate and help modulate your whole immune system. So anywhere you have blood supply, you have these cells in the body. So these are called mesenchymal stem cells. So MSCs, I'll just call MSCs. So these MSCs, when you were born, every 10,000 cells in your body, there will be one MSCs. But when you reach teenage years, it has dropped down to 1 in every 100,000. So that's tenfold less. And when you reach your 40s, it's 1 in 400,000. And when you reach your 80s, it's 1 in 2 million. As you can see, you're running out of stem cells. So as you grow older, so that is just the way it is. It's not something that we can change. Although now we do have therapies that we can help, replenish the stem cell supply. So the early stem cell therapy actually was done probably now is about 60 years ago from bone marrow transplantation. So they didn't know it was stem cell therapy, but that was actually stem cell therapy because there are stem cells in the bone marrow. And for a long time, people thought that's the only kind of stem cells that are still left in the body. They had no idea there are other kinds of stem cells.
Yeah.
So, and then they found out, oh, it's here, it's there. And so another group of, researchers started to look at stem cells from the fat tissue. So it's not so much the fat has any stem cells. The fat is fat cells, but you've got to have blood supply to supply all the fat cells, right? So all around those blood vessels, there will be stem cells. So like I said, these MSCs, they actually all around the blood vessels. So you're getting cells from that blood vessel that's supplying the fat, and then you can get cells out of that and use that therapeutically. So the oldest form is the bone marrow, the transplantation, so cells from the bone marrow, but they had very few MSCs, a lot of other type of cells, especially hematopoietic progenitor cells. And then, and the second one, you come with fat. And of course, actually before fat, people realized they started studying stem cells, and then they found out about embryonic stem cells. And that's where, all the ethical controversy came along. And then birth tissue only lasts probably the last 20 years, but it's quickly taking over.
Yeah.
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.
So by the way, guys, don't play a drinking game with the phrase stem cells today, because you will be drunk. You're already drunk if you've already... That was like...
I don't want to be too technical. Yeah.
It was da 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 stem cells, da da stem cells, da 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 stem cells.
Hey, that's what we are. We're made of it.
So what is the most common use for stem cell therapy? You talked about like specifically getting liver stem cells to regrow liver. What's the most common use?
Well, we're not quite there.
Okay.
At this point, I think right now the stem cell therapy, of course, first we started with a bone marrow transplant.
Yes.
So, and that just kind of the rich the bone marrow actually has very similar composition as the cord blood, umbilical cord blood, or blood itself. So you can actually transplant umbilical cord blood into a recipient and achieve very similar results to replenish the bone marrow. The thing is, that is the only FDA indication. So all the other use I mentioned, I can't really even talk about the use. All I can talk about is what research has shown, right? And I can mention clinically what I have seen, but the only FDA indication is for blood diseases and to replenish.
But look, if what you talked about earlier is possible and researchers vet that out and find that out, like number one, Nobel Prize in medicine, but like it revolutionizes everything we think about medicine now.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're at this stage, you know, kind of exciting but painful stage of finding things out, but it's not fully accepted by the establishment. So that's where we're at, and it's rapidly changing. So when it comes to what research have shown, so I actually founded an academy, American Academy of Integrative Cell Therapy, where actually when doctors take our course, so I teach this course that, you know, I break these research results down into different organ systems and disease categories. So people actually take away more than 300 articles that's published, that's all categorized. So there's just, you know, you can look from head to toe, you know, all kinds of research has been done, especially for more common conditions. So, you know, the research have shown definitely benefits in all kinds of inflammatory conditions. Let's say, you know, injury, right? Injury recovery, you know, helping tissue repair. So all kinds of osteoarthritis, you know, back, you know, disc diseases. And then, you know, when you look at, so sports injuries and trauma, or even wound healing. So all these are tissue repair. And then there's a lot of kind of chronic conditions like lung diseases, like COPD, and looking at liver regeneration, helping with liver cirrhosis, and with you know, end stage kidney failure, and so you just you know, for even eye, you know, so you basically can look from head to toe, not every condition, but a lot of conditions.
Yeah, I mean, look, earlier you mentioned diabetes, and a lot of people that follow my work, type 2 diabetes through nutrition can be helped. And obviously you mentioned how stem cells, but the type 1 diabetes, it's always been the big bugaboo. Well, there's no cure for type 1 diabetes because once beta cell function of the pancreas isn't working anymore, it's kind of shot its wad. So stem cell therapy, if they can figure this out, if they could grab pancreatic stem cells and be able to regenerate that, again, revolution.
Well, the results were, they didn't even give pancreatic stem cells. They just give regular, I believe it's MSCs. So just regular kind of run-of-the-mill, you know, stem cells that's all over your body. Then they infuse into a person, and some patients, and they show beta cell regeneration.
Whoa. And like, I've never heard that before, Dr. Kong, to be honest.
I know. Me neither before I saw the study.
Yeah. And I'm not looking, quite frankly, at stem cell studies very often, which is, again, why you're here today. I wanted to pick your brain a lot. But it does seem to me that this could be an added venue on top of nutrition and lifestyle for those people with harder cases. And I'm wondering, what role does it play for people with insulin resistance who ostensibly are more susceptible to those diseases of mankind, the chronic diseases? Is it anti-inflammatory effects? Is it something else? What is it?
Yeah, so then we come to how stem cells work.
Yes.
So anti-inflammatory actions is definitely huge. So I'm focusing more on mesenchymal stem cells because that has become kind of the gold standard, or, you know, the holy grail right now, because they saw the wide-ranging mechanism of action and how they can, you know, help the body recover. And you know, one of the most powerful effects is anti-inflammatory effect. So you've got to change the body from this whether it's, whatever tissue that's damaged, if the inflammation is so heightened that your body really can't mount any repair, because then you're just inflamed. And actually inflammation levels start to elevate as we get older and older. So they've done studies of inflammatory markers on somebody that's, let's say, 60, 70, perfectly healthy, maybe golfing, tennis every day, looking great, of course, looking older, but the inflammation marker is higher. Doesn't matter if the person has any sickness or not. As you get older, you get more inflammation.
Yes.
So your body just can't calm your system down enough. So the stem cells can mount an anti-inflammatory effect, and it also can modulate your immune system. Again, from a more inflammation oriented, especially, if you see diabetes, that's an immunological condition. It's an autoimmune, type of condition. And if you look at, the 122 existing autoimmune conditions, they all have this immune dysregulation that's part of it. And so when the MSCs, mesenchymal stem cells, can actually help rebalance the system into a more anti-inflammatory reaction. And,
and that would have a downregulation effect on things like cholesterol, which also, as you get older, goes up. It goes up in response to the inflammation. So if you've got stem cell therapy helping to lower the inflammation, that would also lower some of the cholesterol needs that the body needs as you get older. And maybe some of these doctors will lay off trying to put these patients on a statin medication when all they are is just aging. That's just what happens. As you get older, your cholesterol goes higher. You don't
a lot of problems. I've seen powerful effects from stem cells in lowering cholesterol levels. It's pretty fun to watch. Yeah. So then, if you, the thing is, you are tapping into the intelligence of what made us, right? I haven't seen anything in medicine that has ever come close to that, because we have used molecules, we have used, herbs, and, which is a combination of molecules, right? So we have used machines, but what is more powerful than what made life itself? What I tell people is that when I give you stem cells, I'm giving you intelligence. I'm infusing you with intelligence. The DNA is actually the most energy dense substance in the universe. So it's full of information. So I'm giving you information, and that's what makes it so revolutionary, so powerful. And that's why it's so fun and so exciting to use. I talked earlier about the burnout of medical doctors, because they have been feeling powerless.
Yes.
If all you did was throwing drugs at patients, so patients were just, kind of hanging on to life, and then they get side effect from this drug you gave them, so you throw some more drugs. So they just keep hanging on, and in the end, they get really sick. And then they spent, half of their life's fortune to try to hang on to life more, and that's it. And they die. And so the pharmaceutical company, come out like a champ. They make plenty of money, but what is the quality of life? So that's the thing. When you can give somebody, infuse them with intelligence, that can help the body heal, because it's incredible how powerful our body is. Our body is really, really incredible.
And look, you've been highly successful with your patients. Your assistant sent me the statistics. You've had a 90% success rate with your patients, even those who had tried everything else for whatever the condition they came to see you for. I mean, that's got to be really gratifying.
It's very, very, very gratifying. It's like, even though I want to, receive the credit, but I realize it's not me, it's the cells. It's a very simple and elegant procedure. I just put the cells in the human body, and then the cells just went to work. And then I hear from them, a few days later, a few weeks later, a few months later, and I feel so good. Talk about making an impact in the world, right? Bringing something that's, that brings more happiness to the world. So that's why most of us, I would say, over 90% of the doctors who went into medical school, that's what they want. They want to make a difference. They want to make someone feel better. It feels really good. But then, I think that got farther and farther away from them, and they just became a little, they kind of just pill, dispenser.
By the way, you guys, Dr. Kong is actually 78 years old, so she's example of the anti-aging effects of stem. I'm just kidding.
No, I don't mind, telling people my age. I mean, I'm 50 years old.
Whoa.
And yeah, and
I'm
it's
about to turn 50.
oh, congratulations.
You look
Yeah, I mean
you look a lot better than I do. So.
well, I'm a girl. So I know I look a lot younger than when I was 43, because I have the pictures to prove it. And I do IV stem cells on myself every 3 months. So that's, just statistically, I mean, you can look at studies and look at how, how it can dial back the clock. So the clock is going, right? It's like a train. We're on this train of aging and death. So that's for certain, right? We're going down that route, but can you slow it down? Can you backtrack a little bit? And that's what we're doing with stem cells. We're actually letting you go back, you go back to the previous station, that you get to, you get to have a higher quality of life and more vitality. So it's possible, along with a lot of other tools, but stem cells is so powerful because I gave the presentation at a few conferences about the anti-aging benefits of stem cells, because I'm here not just to help people with really difficult conditions. I also want to help people to live a longer and happier life. So I want them to feel their best. And research have shown not only regular stem cell infusions, these are animal studies, can extend lifespan by about 30%, but also extend their lifespan. So these are mice and rats. So they're healthier, their furs are shinier, their spine is straighter, their cognition is better, they're running around the maze, they can figure things out. So they overall have this much longer time where they're vibrant and healthy, and then, they die, but they live 30% longer. I mean, that has been pretty consistent. Yeah. But not just that, when they give a stem cell infusion and then they start to measure these levels, for example, they measured acetylcholine level, this neurotransmitter level, in both your muscles and in the brain. So they can test, your muscle functioning and your brain functioning. After stem cell treatment, both measures have gone back to the level when they were younger. And the growth factor level also got back to when it was young, when they were younger. It's astounding, right? Not only they do better, all these measurable, statistics correlates. So that's really, really, really exciting.
So we have a question that's come in from Marie. She says, can you speak about cord blood? Can you use this as cell therapy? My son hurt himself playing football, hurt his arm, but now is a pitcher. I saved his cord blood. I still have it. Would like to know if it could be used to help his nerve damage.
I think definitely there's a good possibility that can help. So for neurological conditions, neurodegenerative conditions, cord blood has shown benefits. So the cord blood, the one drawback is it doesn't have enough mesenchymal stem cells, but it's great that you saved your son's cord, because, when you don't have enough mesenchymal stem cells, which, a lot more can be obtained from the cord tissue. But if you only have cord blood, you have, on average in cord blood, there's very similar to composition of the bone marrow. So there's 0.1 to 0.01% of mesenchymal stem cells, a very small proportion. So if you use somebody else's cord blood, then there's more chance of, some kind of reaction. Although, because the cells are so young, that reaction is not very significant. But if you use his own, first of all, you have to get, if you're able to process the cells, and that's what I don't know exactly what what you have, because different companies work differently. Some just preserve the tissue, some actually take out the cells, and when they do extract the cells, are they doing a great job? Are the cells still viable? After they extract them out and freeze them to wait for future use, the key is what happens when you thaw them out. Yes, they may be alive when you froze them, but depending on how good you are at this technology, by the time you thaw them out, they may be, most are dead. So I don't know, how good the processing is, because there are various companies. but he can certainly, get the cells out and try to inject locally. If he's still young, when young athletes, young people have just a local, muscular skeletal injury, I can just do a local injection. But if they have osteoarthritis, they have systemic conditions, that really is part of why their tissues are not healing, like osteoarthritis, which is not a wear and tear disease, because we wear and tear our body all the time. Like when we were 5 years old, 10 years old, we're banging ourselves up all the time. Do we have osteoarthritis? No, because you have so much stem cells. They work so well. They fix it right up. But when you're older, your body just can't keep up with any even slight damage. So it just gets worse and worse and worse. So in those cases, in my clinic, I do IV infusions because I want to rejuvenate your whole body so your body can keep up. Yeah. So, but larger joints is a whole other issues. So it's because you need to get into the joint space and the cartilage, in the large joint. Some are supplied by the outside blood supply, and some are nourished by the synovial fluid that's in the joint. So there's all these, it really depends on each person, and so the treatment protocol will reflect what we're treating exactly.
Are you tired of playing the mask game? Me too. That's why I wanted to tell you about the Unmask. This is a breathable, completely breathable. It covers, you can't even see that it's breathable, but it's breathable. Whether you're going on a plane, having to go into a store and wearing this thing, playthemaskgame.com is how you can get this mask. They come in all kinds of colors and everything. In fact, right there, you can see right through it what it is, but when you're wearing it, it does not look like it's anything different, but it's breathable, baby. Playthemaskgame.com. Is there any contraindication for specific people about stem therapy, stem cell therapy, and is it like blood type? Like you can't mix blood types? Is there any kind of problem with mixing stem cells with different kinds of people? Anything like that?
Well, that's the beauty of stem cells. Because they're so young, especially when you talk about mesenchymal stem cells. They have this immune modulating property, so they calm the immune system down and preventing it from overreaction. So for example, when someone gets a tissue transplant, right? Let's say get a transplanted liver. And when you give mesenchymal stem cells at the same time, you tend not to have rejections. So it actually calms your immune system. So the mesenchymal stem cells specifically doesn't cause that kind of reaction. So they call it immune evasive, or immune privileged.
Yeah.
So these cells, you don't have to worry about it, especially if you're getting it from a very young source. So what's interesting, I talk about this in one of my videos, talking about other people's DNA in our body, which I have lots of people's DNA in me, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's fantastic. The thing is, when a woman gets pregnant, now we know their baby's stem cells have, or the baby cells have traveled into the mother. There's a lot of communication back and forth. So the baby cells actually travel into the mother's bloodstream and end up settling anywhere in the body. So at first they found out, it's in the brain. And then they found out, it's in the breast. And then they realized, it's everywhere. So there's already communication and kind of, another person's DNA in your body. So potentially these cells can stay. They can stay. So the baby in the mother's DNA is only half identical, right? Yet you have these half identical cells, surviving and thriving and being part of the new person. So the fact that we're all humans, is quite advantageous. It makes it quite easy for cells to stay. So when you have mesenchymal stem cells, you're really reducing the chance of any reactions. The issue with cord blood is that there's very limited number of mesenchymal stem cells, and when you especially if you're not purifying the product enough, there's a little bit red blood cell fragments that can cause some kind of immune reaction, which is what I found when I was using umbilical cord
Yeah.
blood cells in the beginning, that people may have, actually used to warn people, you may have, a little bit of flu-like symptoms for a few days. That's the tissue kind of cross reaction. Some people may get sniffling, may get chest tightness. So, but that lasts for, no more than 3 days. But ever since I started using products of a high mesenchymal stem cell count, I don't have any of those issues. There's no reaction. People are feeling great. They just right away start getting the benefits of it. I would say the only people I'm very careful with are people who tend to have hypersensitivity to a lot of things. They can easily break out with all kinds of food, with all kinds of medications. So their system is so heightened. And those are the people I'm a little bit more cautious with. Doesn't mean that they can't have the therapy. I'll just have to pre-medicate them a little bit to calm down their histamine reaction. Yes. So yeah, other than that, I find out, when you use young stem cell sources, it's actually it's extremely safe. It's extraordinarily safe, actually. If we have even, one or two of the, those serious potential side effects from any of the drugs that's on the market, it would be banned. It would be illegal. So.
Yeah, exactly. So what does a treatment cost if someone came to see you or someone like you? And by the way, how many there are of you around the world or even in America? How many people are doing this kind of therapy?
I think they're a little less now, just because of the recent, I think FDA kind of doubled down on their effort to really not wanting this therapy to be widespread. So it was growing very rapidly. I would say, in larger metropolitan areas, especially, Los Angeles, Miami, and New York, these are more of a hotbed kind of area. New York, maybe a little less, but definitely LA and Miami. So there are, doctors spread all around the country who are doing it. But what's interesting is a lot of patients have no idea that they can get stem cell treatment in the US. They thought they have to fly all the way out to Panama or Mexico to get the treatment. So the reason that you can get the treatment here is because the way we are doing the treatment is that we're using these cells as a tissue transplant. We're not using them as drugs because we're not processing the cells. We're not changing the cells. This is like a blood transfusion, right? So it was governed by American Associations of Tissue Banks. So this is the entity that governed all these tissue banks, how they can process the cells and how they can, the blood, process the blood and how they can process tissue. So it's no different. So you're getting the tissue, you're getting the cells out from the birth tissue, and then you take them out mechanically. You don't use medications, you don't use enzymes, you don't alter them in any way, and you don't grow them into large numbers. So what happens overseas is that a lot of these clinics will grow the cells to a huge number, right? So if I give somebody 10 million cells, and because they can kind of grow the cells on trees, they will just expand it to a huge number, and then they can take a little portion of that and give it to you saying, hey, I'm giving you 100 million cells or 200 million cells. It sounds great, except that a lot of those are not stem cells anymore. When you expand the cells, unless you're doing it perfectly, in perfect condition, and you have to restrict within a few generations. Otherwise, there's going to be changes in the cells. They're going to start to degenerate, degrade, and they will change what they express. And if even if they're within the few generations, let's say 4 generations, and you don't monitor the condition perfectly, the cells often will divide into one stem cell, but then another cell will be further down the line, would be differentiated. It would not be stem cell anymore. It would be the daughter cell. So they can, divide unevenly, right? So asymmetrically. And that's how stem cells replenish tissue, right? So they divide themselves into one stem cell and one daughter cell. So then they can continue to exist, and then they continue to replenish the tissue. And that's their tendency. So if you don't do it exactly right, that's what's going to happen. These cells are going to start to have so you end up growing a lot of cells, only the original number of stem cells are there, and then you divide them up into many portions,
Right.
and saves you a lot of money, because practically, I mean, it's amazing how much money they make by doing that, because you literally are cutting down your costs by 100, 200, 300%,
So
or
it's
the
so it's
fold.
so it's a bait and switch on what you do, and that's unfortunate. So you do it the right way. You are in LA, by the way, for people that don't know. How much does the treatment cost, and is there an ICD code since it's considered a tissue transplant where insurance would help pay for it, or is it cash only?
There probably will be very, very few insurance companies that actually pay for you. If you have some extraordinary insurance, there's a possibility, but most people's insurance, they're not going to cover it, because their excuse is that it's not FDA approved. The stem cell therapy generally, for someone, let's say someone comes to me and we do a simple joint injection, I charge $4,000. And if they do 2 joints at the same time, and I charge them $7,000. And each additional joint, then I'll charge them another $2,500. So that's just how I do in the clinic. And for IV infusions, it starts at $7,000, and the higher amount of the stem cell product one needs, the higher the cost is. So on average, I would say it's between $4,000 to $15,000, depending on what you're doing.
And look, I mean, it could be something that you do a couple times a year. It's not like you're going back every week. And you see that
you could do it once. That's it.
Right.
If I fix you, that's it. If you don't re-injure the spot, you're good for life until except that you'll be aging,
right.
And then
well,
and then you want to stop the aging process, then you can do it on a regular basis.
Well, and this is where what I talk about on a regular basis with diet and lifestyle stuff comes into play. Get that stem cell stuff going in you, and then do things actively in your lifestyle to be younger and anti-age all that way, and it makes the stem cells work even better.
Exactly. So that's why the academy I founded is named American Academy of Integrative Cell Therapy, because I know stem cells don't exist in vacuum. You've got to address the body. Again, this comes to the web. If I'm just doing stem cells, then I'm just doing, going back to the same old model of thinking that Western, even though it's very holistic, but if you're ignoring the fact that if you got toxic, somehow you've got mold in your body, you've got lead in your body, and if your hormone is imbalanced, if you don't have vitamin D in your body, I mean, all these are important. You can't ignore facts, right? You can't ignore reality. So you've got to integrate.
And rest and stress management and by the way, she's 50 years old. I think you're doing pretty well for yourself, my dear. This is from her other account. You've got an account called Tiger of Beijing, which will be your memoir someday. I love that name.
No, it's already on Amazon.
So you already have. Okay. Yeah,
Tiger of Beijing is my memoir about the 3-year journey of how I came to America and survived in America. So it's already it's been out for a couple years. It's that was just a few months ago.
She's going to be 90 and still modeling.
I tell people this is my goal. I mean, it's kind of a fun goal, right? So I tell people, yes, I'm 50. And then you say, oh yeah, of course you're Asian. So you guys don't age. I was like, yeah, you just wiped away all my hard work. It's not because I'm Asian, because I was Asian when I was 43 and I was aging. And how I'm able to reverse aging process is because of the hard work I put in. Thank you for all that.
Like, I follow that because I'm like, that's like gold. I'm still a dude, but I still feel like, wow, like you've proven stem cells have that anti-aging. You're living proof of it.
So my goal is, I said, do not be impressed. I don't need you to tell me that you're impressed that I look this way, that I'm 50 years old. Just wait until I'm 75. Then, if I still look the same, I would like you to tell me how impressed you are. And this is the first time in history it's actually possible. I tell people, no matter how powerful you are, you can be the most powerful ruler, you can be Cleopatra, you can be, the top of the top, in all the empires, and you're aging. That's one thing you couldn't do anything about until now. Now, anybody, well, with some financial, resources, at this point. Maybe it will get cheaper later on. I don't know. The more the FDA, try to prevent this process, the more it will stay this expensive. But you're not king and queen, but you can do this. This is something that, the most powerful people could not have throughout the history.
So guys, that's Dr. Joy Kong. Go check her out, Stem Cell Dr. Joy, over on Instagram. And like I said, she's in LA. Look her up. I'm sure she'd love to help you out if this intrigued you here today. But Dr. Kong, Joy, thanks so much for being here.
So just for people who, if they want to know more about stem cell therapy, just look up on YouTube. My channel is Joy Kong MD, but just look up my name on YouTube. I have a lot of really helpful videos that break things down, different aspects of their stem cell therapy. So, like how do stem cell work? The 3 stages of healing in stem cell therapy, about other people's body and your, cells in your body, and about how, what about Panama, treatment in Panama. So I have different presentations. So there are a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, you've got some good thumbnails there, so it's no question what you're talking about. Good job. But thank you so much for being here today.
You're very welcome. It's been really fun chatting with you, and I really enjoy this live because I don't do this very, very often.
Get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com. Woo!
Keto can be hard. Tabulating, measuring, baking, taking 3 months to perfect one recipe, and to mixed reviews.
Did something die in here? Oh, I think it moved.
And by that point, you give up your diet, find a dark corner, and stuff yourself with sugar, carbs, and regret.
This, isn't what it looks like.
Well, this is where Keto Chow saves the day. The easiest, tastiest, ketoist meal replacement on the market.
It's like ice cream melted in my mouth.
Yes, but melted ice cream with all the protein, nutrients, vitamins, and electrolytes your body needs.
Oh, that's cool.
And with 3 starter kits, each with restaurant tips, keto food guides, and a ton of flavors to try, your taste buds and your waistline will thank you.
Thank you.
So grab your starter kit today at jimmylovesketochow.com.
It's so easy.
Keto Chow. Make keto easy.